Hello and welcome back to Surly Tones. Now, in this episode, I'm going to cover a manga series by the name of Dragon's Crown. Came out in 2014, based on a video game put out by Atlas Games, Atlus, of course, that came out in 2013. They also put out a pro version later in 2018. As far as I can tell, it was a successful gaming system. I think the pro system was brought in by Sega. The manga books, they seem very Dungeons and Dragons 5e um, oriented. A lot of the adventures or the stories held within the pages seem to be lifted almost directly out of modules, including from the basic set. Uh, I started to recognize certain stories. There was another story where it was a group of young women taken captive by vampires, and the party had to go in and rescue them. It felt like the old Gauntlet series of video games, where they would call them warrior, elf, barbarian, wizard. Uh, they really didn't utilize names. There was an old guy who was a dwarf, and I think they referred to him as old man all the time because he was an older dwarf. It was okay. I picked up volume one, and it seemed to be mildly entertaining what I read of it. And then I saw there was only one other volume, so I decided, screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and buy that as well. Now, the oversized breasts on the wizard, the female wizard, uh, way out of proportion. Barely anything was covered. I wasn't expecting that. And the female warrior or barbarian, I think it was a female barbarian. Her posterior was just monstrous. So the bodies were exaggerated in so many ways. There was even a dark elf who was kind of abnormally proportioned. Not that I would expect anything different from the genre. The adventures were even set up like a D&D session, and I would imagine pretty much like most video games, RPG video games as well, which I've not played but maybe one or two, and I'm not impressed by video games. When I first started reading this, and I discovered it was a video game, and supposedly I think it's still running. I think I saw that online as well. It took me a while to really kind of research this because, like I said, I'm not into video games, so I wouldn't even recognize most of the terms, only as they would cross over to the actual tabletop role playing genres. Uh, it was okay. I didn't really. I almost stopped, and I was getting a little frustrated because it didn't really seem to flow very well. The segues between action scenes, there was nothing to connect them. It just seemed as if you just went from one battle to another to another to another, very much set up like a video game as far as I've seen. Each section seemed to have its big boss, or it had its ending that was a combat scene. Very little conversation was going on to push the story forward. In between adventures, they would go to a town and they were basically told by a wizard or someone running a tavern what adventures they could actually get into. I wasn't really impressed with it. Um, I don't know what I expected, but I had heard that it was a lot like a D&D session, which it kind of was, but to me, it really didn't flow well. Would I suggest it to somebody else? If you're into the video game, it would probably work for you. If you were heavily into D&D and video games, it might work for you. But as I'm not into video games and I don't understand that realm or the world that they've crafted for it, it just didn't really jive with me very well. So I'm most likely going to get rid of it. I think I got a few friends that might dig it, but I'd actually give it a low rating if I were still rating my comics. To me, it just fell short of what I was hoping for. So, thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.